Hi everyone, it's Hans here, the founder of Cappuccino, and welcome back to this latest episode of Flat Whites and Insights, a podcast created to allow a space for open, honest, and vulnerable conversations with real people held over a beautiful cup of coffee. I'm back for Series 4, and I can't wait to get going again with so much more to dive into and share with you guys. So grab a coffee for yourselves, take a moment, and I hope you enjoy this latest conversation. Thank you, take care, and enjoy.
Lara, hi.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking some time to join me on Flat Whites and Insights. We're just saying before we hit record, this is the first one of the series. I'm coming back for Series 4, so kicking off with yourself. But really looking forward to having this conversation. I discovered you, I guess is a word to say, through Instagram and your
Yeah.
park bench girl, which is what some people might recognise you from. But for those who don't know who you are, you like to start with a brief introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Lara, and yeah, as you said, I am that park bench girl on Instagram. I started park benching, which is essentially where I sit across different park benches across London and kind of strike up a conversation by having a board, a little whiteboard that says mental health is important. Come join me for a chat.
Mm,
And I started it after coming out of a quite a toxic workplace that I was only there for a month
mm,
last year. And I'd had the idea to go and do this at some point anyway, because I love talking with people and I've struggled with my mental health significantly in the
mm,
past. So I just thought, why not go and do it whilst I was looking for a new job? And so, yeah, I just spoken to almost like not far off 100 people now. And I'm just really grateful for everyone that's come and sat with me because I've had some incredible
mm.
conversations. So I'm hoping to kind of build on my platform. Eventually, I'd love to have a podcast as well. So yeah, that's kind of the dream.
Yeah, amazing. Even just that, just in that little introduction, there's so much that I think could be is quite inspiring and quite like I say brave. I know it's sometimes people say, "Oh, is it brave to open up and talk?" But I think it is even just
Yeah,
that putting yourself out there with that sign in public. You know, being very aware that there might be rejection. Quite a lot of it. People might look
totally.
and the first few times when you first went out there, like the first
Mm.
time you went out with your whiteboard to how what was the feeling? How did you feel kind of going for that first time?
I felt really excited. I felt a bit like a child because I started off with this little cardboard, literally a piece of cardboard from just like a box from moving house. And I cut it out. I put some glittery tape around the outside, some blue and pink tape, wrote it with just a marker pen. And I was just like, this is the perfect time to be doing it because so much of my time was spent job hunting 9 till 5. I was treating it like a full-time job. And I was like, I need to get
Mm,
out of the house and actually feel like I'm making an impact in some sort of way by being proactive. And so it was a nice way to get out the house, speak with people I've never
mm,
spoken to before. I think the first one I went to was in Battersea Park. I sat
yeah.
along right along the river.
Mm,
And oh, it was just amazing. I was just kind of overwhelmed with the amount of people that came and sat to chat, to be honest, because you know, very much wouldn't have been surprised if I was there for like 5 hours and had no one. But I had
mm,
quite a few people, and I think people assume you've been doing it for ages, but obviously it was my first day doing it, and it
yeah.
was yeah, it was really special.
Yeah. No, I can imagine so
Mm.
rewarding and I think back to you mentioned there and a question I was going to ask and I think it was something I maybe presumed, whether that's the right way to say it, was someone who's
Mm.
going out and doing this, there will be some lived experience. So and you mentioned about a time that time in the workplace was tough.
Mm.
And it can be really difficult sometimes maybe accepting that someone's going through something or wanting to open up that conversation. And I guess something that is a question I wanted to ask was if you in that time when you're in that dark place had seen someone sat with a
Mm.
sign on the park bench, do you think that would have been like a really good opportunity, or do you think there would have been times where you would have almost wanted to keep it in?
That's a really good question. I think I'm so it really depends on the type of mind frame I'm in because
Mm,
if I'm feeling low and I'm just out for a
mm,
walk and I see that sort of person there, I'd be like, wow, that's a cool opportunity, like to talk to someone
mm,
you've never spoken to before. And I really think it's important to take those opportunities because you can meet potentially a new best friend. You can meet someone that you just learn
Yeah.
something incredible from. Like it's never going to be a wasted opportunity, or human connection is like super important. But I think if I was in a really one of those headspaces where I need to be out for a walk and just zone in on myself and just
Mm,
sometimes put some music in, not talk to anyone. Sometimes you just need to process your own thoughts. So if I'm in
yeah.
one of those headspaces, I wouldn't stop, because I sometimes, speaking with people, if you've not got the social battery for it,
Mm,
it can end up taking more energy and it
yeah.
can kind of zap you. So yeah, it depends on the type of headspace, but I
Yeah.
definitely wouldn't say never, because I do love talking to people and it can significantly help.
Yeah, I think it's the reason I asked that question. I was almost thinking myself. I was going back into my mindset of when I was in. So with myself, Cappuccino, the kind of name of the platform,
Yeah.
similar. I had a period of time when I was off work for about 6 months, and
Mm,
from my mental health, I'd been
mm,
diagnosed anxiety, depression, had a bit of
mm,
burnout, and similar in a way. I can relate to where you were saying you just felt like you need to be out the house, that bit of a purpose. It was different, and it really helps you sometimes when there are challenging times to be busy. And I know it's
mm.
sometimes so hard to try and explain that to someone if they are feeling low and drained, like they just think they want to rest. But having something to focus on was really positive for myself. But yeah, it's
Totally.
interesting because I was thinking at that time of when I was really in those darkest moments, I think I probably wouldn't
Mm.
wouldn't stop and wouldn't talk. But now I think, yeah, like maybe those brighter ones, it would have just sparked something, and I maybe it's talking to a stranger and just getting things off your chest that maybe you would never even say to someone who's close to you because there's that complete removal of judgment. And
Totally.
and so yeah, it was just a really interesting. I think of myself when I was in that moment, but I guess looking at it from that perspective, and even for
Mm.
anyone listening, if they maybe know someone who's maybe struggling or think might be struggling, it's just because they maybe don't want to talk that time. Sometimes it's not the thing. So it's such a hard thing to approach of let's have a conversation.
Yes.
Tell me what's going on. Like it's so difficult sometimes.
And that's why sometimes I think it's so important to, like, it's not a case of trying once to kind of
Mm,
encourage someone to open up, because it might just be, as you said, that one moment where they're not in the right headspace to do it. That's not to say that it's not worth trying again. I mean, obviously
mm,
there comes a point you can't push someone,
no,
but there are different environments where someone might feel a bit more relaxed and a bit more like they have the energy to at least
mm,
have that open conversation, or maybe when they're in an environment that's more familiar to them, whether that's like at a sports match or like out for
yeah,
a run or going bowling, like for anyone, you might just catch them at the right moment.
yeah, definitely. And I think even if they don't, even if someone says no, or I had times, and I have still have times where someone asks, how are you doing? And it's even if you don't want to talk about it and you just say fine and you move on, like just knowing that someone has asked is really nice because there were times just that someone's noticed, maybe someone's noticed I'm not my usual self, and just feeling
Totally.
seen is really nice. So that's where, as you say, it's just nice to approach that conversation. And
Absolutely. And I think that really makes me think about the fact that I recently, within the last few months, undertook mental health first aider training at my
yeah,
workplace, which was
nice.
fantastic. And ever since we had that training, there's a group of about maybe 12 of us at my workplace. I work at a charity for a hospital, and
Mm,
we all meet like every 6 weeks to discuss ways that we can improve mental health in the workplace. And I think what we kind of came to the conclusion about at some point is that sometimes it's not about getting that person to open up, but just showing you care. So, for example, there
mhm,
are ways that you can ask, "Are you okay?" without necessarily asking it. So, for example, if I was not feeling so great and someone could sense it, putting a cup of tea on someone's desk, it doesn't matter if they drink it, it doesn't matter if they want it. And I'm not someone that advocates for wasting things, but at the same time, I think that can go such a long way to that person's day, because it just shows them that someone's there to support them and someone's offering a helping hand.
yeah,
Yeah, it's really important.
yeah, so true. And it's
Mm.
especially as I say in workplaces that it's people spend a lot of time at workplaces, and then I know it's you don't want to push too much for this whole we're a big family, and that can feel
Mm,
a bit forced sometimes.
totally.
And it's getting that right balance, I think. And we've just done similar with people going through mental health first aid training. It's something which
Mm,
I had done previously, and Restore is a Oxfordshire-based charity that
mm,
I've supported them for quite a while now.
mm.
And the proceeds from my coffee blend, for example, with cappuccino, would go towards them. And I've done
Fantastic.
various fundraisers. But they do the mental health first aid training, and it's something I'd done at a previous workplace. So when I moved to my new place in January, it was quite early days. I was knocking on my line manager's door, like, I think, can we do this? Can we bring it in?
Amazing.
And so it's nice. We're just kind of establishing that now, so
Yeah.
it's good. But at that way of, because it's a startup, so a very new organization,
Mm.
so they're just finding their feet in terms of a business as well
Yeah,
as
totally.
hoping the technology works. But
Yeah, absolutely.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
but it's really nice to kind of have that connection with them, and introduce it in a new workplace, and try and open those conversations up. But like you say, it's that it doesn't necessarily always matter what the result of that conversation is as such. It's to someone, the fact there was an offer of a conversation, or they felt seen, or someone's noticed, I think is often the biggest bit.
100%.
Yeah.
Exactly that, because it might be that, I think often some people can assume that everyone has like a relatively good social network, or you see on social media platforms that people look like they have the best friendship group and the most
Yeah.
supportive thing, but it's such a one-sided view. They might actually be incredibly lonely, or their friends maybe don't ask the right questions or don't know how to broach the subject with them. So I think seeing online that people might seem okay is, people have to remember that is not an indication of their actual life as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I
Mm.
think touching on that, so I've had sometimes people ask me, or people I've known for a while, and they know I've been through challenging times, and they now see I've got a podcast and I'm talking about being quite open sometimes about myself or encouraging
Mm.
others, and they go, Hans, like, I remember when you wouldn't stand up in front of the class and read a poem, for
Wow.
example, and they like really see that growth. So sometimes people do presume that you're good now in terms of that. Oh, you're through it. Like, do you find, or have you had similar, because you're doing the park bench girl now, do people think,
Yeah.
oh, it's great that you've, come through it and now you're inspiring
Mm.
others, when actually there must still be days where maybe the last thing you want to
Totally.
do, sorry, frog in my throat now,
No, 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 not at all.
where like
Like
the last thing you want to do is go and sit and do the park bench girl. So do you still have days like that sometimes?
100%, 100%. And I think one of the comments that I still get from people, and I totally get why, but I think sometimes I'm in such an echo chamber where I think everyone thinks the same as me, and
Mm,
things like this. There are still people that will say to me, "I'm so surprised that you've got mental health issues because you're so happy, you're so energetic."
mm,
And I'm like, I always think that people know at this point that they're often sometimes the most depressed people who can put on this incredible front, like comedians, people in the media.
mhm,
They often are the most depressed people, um,
mm,
and it is so easy to put on that front. And like, you can still be the most energetic person in the room and the happiest person in the room, and you can be genuinely happy when people see you being happy. It's not that it's necessarily false, but it's like, of course you still are dealing with the thoughts and the
mm,
the difficulties, and you know it's just because someone seems a certain way, it's absolutely not reflective of what's going on behind the scenes. So it does
yeah,
sometimes surprise me when people are shocked by the fact that I struggle with my
mm,
mental health. And
yeah,
when you said about, some days maybe not wanting to park bench, or if I'm not in a certain headspace. And I mean, the other day I was only traveling within London, but I went from North London to like Greenwich,
yeah,
and it somehow took me an hour and a half to get there. And I was going, there was like a festival on near Greenwich, and I was walking through to find the right place with a good footfall and seeing the right dynamics and stuff. I moved a few times, and by the time I sat down, I was in such a negative headspace,
yeah,
and you don't really know it sometimes until everything around you annoys you. Like you
hmm,
find yourself
yeah,
overstimulated, you're getting frustrated with the smallest things. And it was at that point, when I finally decided where I was sitting, I went, not today. And I
no,
went and I genuinely slept on in the park. I just had my whiteboard with me, put a podcast in, and I just had to
yeah,
accept that it wasn't a wasted journey. Like sometimes it takes
mm,
you to get there and then realize, actually, I'm not in that space. So,
yeah.
but no,
And I
that
think,
definitely happens.
yeah, and it's funny because I guess with the aim of park bench, it's park bench girl is where, it's sometimes, just giving someone that space or time they need for them, and it has, and so almost that time it was almost for yourself. A bit like where we often say you wouldn't speak to your friends the way you wouldn't speak to yourself the way you'd speak to your
Totally.
friends. It was almost in that moment, it was you were the one who needed just that
Yeah.
moment and that time on the bench. So yeah.
100%. And I wouldn't be a good person to talk to if I'm in that headspace,
Yeah,
because
probably just
I'd
snap at someone. Just
well,
like,
yeah,
I know what you mean.
exactly, because
Yeah.
we're only human. And like, I think I'd be so in my own head
Mm,
about like, oh, would they know can they maybe sense that I'm not right, or and it's important to talk to someone, give them that space when they're opening up. Like it's such an important thing. You've got to give them the
Yes.
time. You never want to rush someone. And so I think that was it's very much like you've got to look after yourself before you give as much as you can to other
Mm,
people. And weirdly, as much as social media I know can be so bad for mental health, I think it's actually through social media that I've learned, because I follow a lot of like body positive influencers and things like
yeah.
that. And they always talk about like it's okay to have lazy days. It's okay to have the not the most productive day. And sometimes you just have those days where you just want to stay in bed, and that's totally fine. Like I think there's such a grind culture, especially in London,
Mm,
about
yeah.
go and do the most you can in a day. And every day you have to seize to the absolute maximum. You should work 12 hours, but you should also get 12 hours sleep. And it's such a toxic culture that is promoted to us. And like we're humans, we're supposed to be in nature. We're not supposed to sit behind a desk 9 till 5 every single day. And I just think it's so important to remember that you will get those days, and sometimes they'll turn into weeks. And as long as you monitor it, everyone gets those phases. It's
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah, definitely. And I
Mm.
think for me, I mean, one of the things when I first started cappuccino, again, it was initially it wasn't
Mm.
talking about mental health at all. Hence the name is very coffee based. It
Yeah.
was I was when I was on that time signed
Love.
off, I was just going
Yeah.
to Oxford because Oxford's got some amazing like independent cafes and really good coffee scene. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to get out of the house, so I'd like take a book or just go to a cafe and try the different ones. And I was kind of reviewing cafes is how it started. Initially, because there
Mm.
was a bit on my part of embarrassment, shame. I think I didn't want people and I didn't put my face to it because I didn't want people to know
Mm.
it was me. Or I didn't want people to know I wasn't working. Didn't want people to know that I was
Mm.
struggling. And then I think I did a few posts just as people might be wondering why I'm spending all this time in the day in cafes, and then
Yeah.
shared a little bit, and it just kind of got traction and grew organically from there. But it's yeah, a big thing is self-care is not selfish, or about like sometimes it's, well,
Totally.
what does selfish, or is selfish even negative? In some connotations it's really positive to be selfish, is probably a better way of phrasing that. uh,
Yeah, totally. Do you mind me asking how did it turn from the coffee into the mental health work? Was there a certain point at which that
yeah,
changed?
I think so. For me internally it was always the mental health. In a way, it's just the coffee was the way of, I was finding a platform and something to keep me busy and keep me occupied in a purpose,
Mm.
because and I still struggle with it now. I'm getting better, but often if someone asks how was your day or how was your morning, even like my wife asks how was your day, I almost instinctively go to productivity first. I'll be like, yeah, it was
Mm.
really productive, and it'd be like, actually that shouldn't be my main. Like that is often, even
Yeah,
still, that is my main thing. Like even a work day, sometimes people would say, yeah, because you're at work to be productive, but I try to shift it now. But I that's just the way I'm wired. I just productivity.
that's a really interesting insight actually, because I look at it practically as well. Like this is
Mm,
what I did today, not how was your day and like how did it make you feel, and the emotional side of it.
yeah,
I always jump because that's what I
yeah.
think people are asking. That's a really
Mm.
interesting
So
way to look at it.
So I kind of noticed that, and I'm kind of basically trying to shift that a little bit of, even if I wasn't productive, if I had a good time and I had a good conversation with a colleague and had a nice lunch, good coffee,
Mm.
yeah. So that's the way I'm trying to shift. But
Yeah,
I realized I wanted to feel productive, so I had this page reviewing cafes. But once it got a bit of traction, it then just felt, I felt better, and it almost became like an online journal, like digital journal for me. I don't
totally.
journal myself, but if I was feeling a bit negative or bad, I could just put it out on social media in a way, not looking
Mm.
for sympathy. It was just a way to get it out onto the page and out of my head. Um,
Totally.
from there, I got to know some of the cafes and baristas in Oxford quite well.
Mm.
And then as it grew a little bit, I thought, well, I want to maybe use the coffee to give back a little bit. So
Mm.
approached them all, sent them a message. It didn't expect anything back of, I've got this small platform, Cappuccino. I want to do a charity blend, and can
Yeah.
proceeds go towards Restore, the mental health charity. And so Jericho Coffee Traders in Oxford came back, and we've got this blend now, the self care blend, which has been going for 3 or 4 years now, and
Wow.
proceeds from every sale go towards the mental health charity. And I was involved in, did all the cupping and getting the flavor notes and everything, so felt involved. But now it's kind of in house, and they just, it's one of their coffees now. So really cool
That
that
is
that happened. Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, because I mean, the coffee culture in the UK is like exceptional, and especially like in
Mm,
London as well, and any big city. So it's really nice that that's a way that people will just have that little reminder. you know, by seeing that branding and that like relationship made between that. Because as you say, people go and grab a coffee, and that's where people talk. Just as much as people talk over pints, they also talk over coffee, you know.
Yeah, and that's where then the podcast grew, because I was like, conversations over coffee. So
Yeah,
some of them, if people are local, or I'd try maybe do some in person, or we do them
yeah.
online, and just had that idea of a conversation over coffee,
Mm.
and it started, and now this is going to be episode number 40. So it's still going,
Ah,
and
that's so
it's
exciting.
it's nice that it just goes alongside work, and although it's can be busy and it's something else to think about, again, it's that just something that isn't work and gives me energy, as the way I've said previously. Like, it's something that gives me energy, so I enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
totally. And I think that's the most important thing, is to monitor like how you feel when you're doing something. Because
Mm,
I've even noticed over the years with friends, like, you know someone's a good friend when you leave them and you feel energized, you know,
yes,
regardless of how
100%.
you're physically feeling. You might feel like low energy in terms of you hadn't eaten enough or you haven't fueled that day, but mentally your energy, it's different from physical energy, in my opinion. And
Mm,
yeah, I think that's a huge thing to monitor that.
yeah, definitely. That energy, do they give you energy, or do they drain your energy? And that
Exactly.
whole
Yeah.
thing, and you get it when in all walks of life, in work. Everyone's got those colleagues where they're like, yes, I've got a meeting with them, no matter what we're talking about, even if it's a tough conversation, we'll get
Yeah.
through it. Or there's some people that make the simple complicated, but I'll won't get too much into that in here. But there are certain people that you just see
Yeah.
their name pop up, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yes. You know, sometimes you see someone's face and you're like, I know it's going to be a good day. So like,
Yeah.
I definitely have those colleagues. I work in a very lucky place where I actually
Mm,
look forward to going to the office to see my colleagues. And I think like
nice.
that's such an important place, because if you spend so much time at work, you know, it's nice to be spending it with people that you care about.
Yeah, definitely. So
Mm.
one thing, obviously, part bench girl, so you have
Mm.
conversations with people. There must be, it's probably hard to single it down, or have moments that really you remember, or quotes, or something that someone said. But are there any, or at what point, what stage after starting it did you think, I've really hit onto something here, like this is what I wanted it to be and more, kind of thing?
Yeah. Funny. It's funny that you asked that now, because I don't think I ever hit a certain point where I'm like, this is it. I think each time I get like a warm feeling, and I know that
Mm,
that's something that I feel like you often start these things off thinking that it's to help other people, but then you also realize you're helping yourself along the way, which is
yeah.
incredibly special. And I've
Mm,
noticed that from the more people I've spoken to who've done similar, well, not similar, but like yours is unique, but like a similar kind of concepts that people have
yeah.
done. And I've heard them say the exact same
Yeah.
things, and I really relate to that. But I think sometimes people just say things when I'm out, and it really resonates, or it's like quite a pertinent thing. So this one guy I spoke to on Clapham Common, he said something, you know, when it just gels everything together in your head, about how women and men sometimes interact kind of differently, and their thought processes can be quite different.
Yeah.
He said that he often finds it easier. He's kind of like my age, so roughly around 28. And he said he finds it easier to speak with women because women listen to understand, whereas men listen to respond. And I felt like that was such an interesting difference, because the more people I've spoken to, it's like, oh, you know, I try opening up to my friend or my partner, and they just keep trying to give me solutions, but they're not giving me just I just want them to be a soundboard, you
Mm,
know.
yeah.
And I think men do tend to think in a very solution focused or solution orientated way, and women do tend to listen in, and very, I am generalizing here, but
Yeah.
women do tend to listen, empathize, not necessarily give you those solutions, but just be like, I totally understand what you're going through, like how you feel is so valid. And so
Mm,
when that guy said it, I was like, wow, that's such a unique and like brilliant way to put that.
mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, and I can, yeah, I can relate to a couple of things
Yeah.
to this. So in terms of the realizing, you feel like you're offering a platform for others, but it helps yourself massively with
Mm.
myself still with this, and even
Yeah.
doing the podcast. It's, I'm like, well, great. Even if I wasn't recording this, and even if it didn't become a podcast, how
Yeah.
lucky am I to have had 40 conversations with different people who are offering insights, and just learning, like, from people. And I feel like I learn something from every conversation, which is really nice.
100%. And that's one of the things I love about this most. Every single person will
Mm,
always add to your knowledge in whether it's about emotion, whether it's about social connection, whether it's about just random place they've been traveling that they recommend to you. Like it doesn't always
Yeah.
have to be something incredibly deep. But you gain so much from anything that you'd ever read, or it's that human connection is like what we all thrive off. So
Yeah. And I can also relate in terms of the easier to speak to women than men. I'm quite lucky. I think since when I say lucky, maybe I was a part of creating it. I don't know, but in terms of obviously, and I think that once you are a little bit vulnerable and you open up, it just encourages others. And so I've got quite a good network of male friends as well now, that people I've been friends with before I opened up, before I had my breakdown. And I
mm,
think it's nice. Like one of the times, it sounds silly, but some of the times that I really feel like, yeah, really lucky and grateful to have that kind of group of lads, is that we'll have like the WhatsApp group chat, and
mm.
most of it's nonsense, to be honest.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think it's
yeah.
in like, but every now and again, like maybe someone will be going through a career change or
Mm.
feeling something, and as a group of like guys, that people are willing to open up and be vulnerable on that chat and say like, sorry, not the meme today or whatever, and then we actually have a bit of a we do offer that support for each other. And I do think that's really nice that that we kind of do have that little group that we can do that with.
That's really reassuring to hear, because I do feel, again, generalizing, that men have so many surface level conversations,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, but like they aren't necessarily, and I've spoken about this with my female friends a lot. I think women tend to go for coffee. They tend to go for like walks in the morning. They'll go, do these exercise classes where you do have that kind of intimate time to
Mhm.
really get a bit deeper than if you're just rushing meeting someone. Whereas I feel like when men meet up, it's usually like a night out, or it's over pints where things are a bit more silly, or they're going,
Yeah. Or at the
they're playing.
sport or at the
I
football.
was
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say they're playing football, so that everything's focused on the football rather than the actual conversation. So I just feel like even the environments that women typically meet in are more, they facilitate that conversation.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's very
this is
true. Mm.
yeah, and this is why, like, I don't know of many men that meet for coffee regularly or go for walks regularly. It's always got to be like something to distract from the actual conversation. Some could say it's the fun part of it, but I just don't know
Yeah.
where that conversation is
It's
fitting into that.
it's true though, but it's interesting that you said that, because yeah, football's a big thing. For me, one of my passions growing up. I
Mm,
worked at the local FA for nearly 3 years. I've
mm,
sponsored football teams through Cappuccino. But again, because I'm trying to bring
mm,
mental health to that audience, which is probably one of the ones where the conversation needs to open up the most. But you know, associating with a football team, and yeah, partnered with a
mm,
few local football teams, which is really cool.
mm.
But yeah, I'll know. Like, so if I've got, say, the same friend, I'll say, do you want to go to the football together, or do you want to go for coffee? And it's almost like they know, well, what kind of meeting we need. If that
Yes,
makes sense. So they'll know. We don't even have to say. But if one of my mates says, oh, should we grab a coffee? We haven't caught up properly in a while, in terms
that's
of,
amazing. Yeah.
rather than let's go to the football. It's almost like that way of saying I could really do with a chat without having to say I could really do with a chat. If that makes sense. Yeah.
100%. And if that makes it more of an open invite for them, and
Mm,
without having to, especially if it's on, like, if it was on a group chat as well, like, it can feel a bit
yeah.
sometimes intense if it's in front of other people. But that's a really nice system, because it's like putting that cup of tea in front of you and you didn't
Yeah.
ask for it.
Yeah.
It's really special.
Yeah. It's that way of just, and yeah, even in the group chat, we can say like, oh, it'd be great to catch up over coffee, rather than
Mm,
let's go. I don't know. Let's go
kick a ball
play golf
about.
or whatever. Yeah, kick a ball
Yeah, yeah,
about.
yeah.
But
Totally.
no, and it's something that definitely hits home to me. So I went to an all boys school. Just okay,
Mm.
jumping back a little bit into
Yeah,
into
yeah, yeah,
myself
absolutely.
and what kind of, I
Yeah.
guess, what shaped me, I guess. So yeah, so I went to an all boys school, and it was quite a competitive school. It was a grammar school in
Mm,
Buckinghamshire, so you had to pass an exam to get there, etc. So it was very,
mm.
again, why I think I frame everything on productivity. That was a big part of it, because the
Yes.
environment I was in. But at the same
Mm,
time as starting there, so age 10, 11, my parents also split. And so
mm,
dad wasn't at home. And I have two sisters. So I had a
mm.
very male dominated school environment, and then a very female home environment. And
Yeah, wow.
it was interesting, and a challenge initially, because I mean, I'm still close to my dad, but it just, wasn't there all the time. So we didn't maybe have those conversations when I was growing up,
Mm,
about what it means to, be a man, or growing up, and, was in a very male dominated environment, but didn't have a man at home to kind of shape that.
Yes.
And it means I'm very close to my mum. I definitely would. I'm a mummy's boy, 100%. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
really
yeah,
say
yeah,
that,
yeah,
definitely. But and that I think helped in terms of now, or when I went to uni and I kind of got out of the all male environment, then most of my friends at uni, like my closest friends from uni, are girls.
yeah.
So it was interesting that for me, I think it was like, oh, people who I can, yeah, as you said, about maybe have that
Open
space
up.
where people listen and open up. So,
Yeah,
um, but yeah, so that's why when you said about the guys kind of maybe listening to respond or not really
yeah,
giving you that space. So yeah, it was interesting when I look back
yeah.
now. Yeah.
I also do think like I know there's men's mental health is such an important thing. It's something that I do have like I have a vested interest in it because I know that they're essentially the target audience for, like whenever you hear stats, it's like
Mm,
men with the highest suicide rates, the highest cause of death from like 45 onwards, or below 45. And I just think one of the important things is that it's not about shaming men and to be like, why aren't you opening up and being angry at them for not opening up? It's the
yeah.
culture that we've grown up in of,
Mm,
what masculinity is. It's such a small, tiny, narrow-minded view of masculinity is what we grew up with. And I think now I do think that's changing. And I think kind of the younger generation are a lot better at it now about defining what it means to
mm,
be masculine and it being more of a fluid spectrum about what it means to be masculine or feminine. And I think it really, I just do think that if we can educate properly from
mm,
younger, as young as possible, that there shouldn't be those definitive boundaries about what you want to be and how you want to present your feelings and so, etc. And it's about teaching the people who did grow up with that how to open up now, or ways they can,
yeah.
I think it's such a hard thing because people not just don't know how to, but I think if a man potentially opens up to a friend and gets shut down when they've been at their most vulnerable and it's taking them so long to get to that point, and it can just take them being shut down once or being made to feel
Mm,
embarrassed for them to like never open up again. And I think that's why it's not just about people learning how to open up, but the people who are going to receive those conversations or receive
mm,
that conversation
yeah.
um, really need to know how to respond and how to show support. Because
Yeah.
I spoke to like a male mental health influencer the other day. He is basically a mental health speaker, which is something I'd love to do.
Mm,
And I said, "Oh wow, since you've got this big following on Instagram and stuff now, like, do your friends like really openly chat to you about everything and open up to you?" And he said, "No, they don't." He said, "I
I could.
literally went to play golf with my friend the other day, and he said I've been going for a really hard time." So he said to this guy when he got there, "Look, mate, just let you know, I've just going through a breakup and I'm finding it really tough." And the guy just responded, "Oh, mate, sorry to hear that. That's really hard," and just completely carried on with the golf conversation. And it's
Mm,
like, oh, it was such an opportunity to really
yeah.
be there for your friend. And I'm sure he would want to be, but it goes to show that people just don't have the tools to expand on that.
Mm, yeah, I think so. And yeah, I've had yeah, similar as well. It's interesting how, because almost it's really hard, yeah, to open up, but
Mm,
harder than when you, because like he's kind of, say for the guy you spoke to, once he's
mm.
mentioned it and it's kind of not shut down, he then doesn't feel, oh, I don't want to keep bringing it up because it's almost that was
Yes.
the opportunity, like you said. So then it may be, oh, that conversation doesn't happen, and it's there. But yeah, I've had similar, I think, and part of me, I think, with some of my mates who maybe still, I find, with some of my mates, we don't necessarily open up. I think they know that I'm always there if they need me to, and
Mm,
but it's uh, sometimes you can see that someone's not feeling it, but again, you can't force someone to open up and share if they don't want
totally.
to. Um, but yeah, and a part of me thinks, oh, maybe they don't want to open up because they feel I'm like really talk about it now, and like would really be analyzing it and da da da. But
Mm,
it's more that you just want to, even if I'm, as you say, I'm just listening, I'm not there to like give an answer, but it's still a topic that I think people don't know how to approach necessarily. But part of that comes from,
100%.
and maybe even from the friend who didn't open up the conversation, part of that might have come from fear himself of, I don't know how to handle this conversation if it happens. Which is
100%. It feels like a shutdown, but it's not that. That probably wasn't his intention.
no,
It's just he genuinely has no idea how to respond and how to give advice, and
mm,
probably scared about giving the wrong advice or not knowing. You don't have to have gone through something to be able to help talk someone through it. You
yeah,
can take advice from all walks of life. I don't think it's, sometimes when people say, "Oh, well, what would you know? You haven't been through this." It's like you have no idea the sort of everything is kind of relatable in some sort of way. And
yeah,
even if it's
definitely.
not, you can find bits of things that are relatable from other people's experiences as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't. There doesn't have to have been a common experience or common trauma for the general things of kindness, being aware of people,
Absolutely.
listening, asking. Like, it doesn't matter if someone's going through a mental health thing, or they're going through grief, or they're going through
Mm,
stress, or that the way to have those conversations is always, there's a similar tools. And I think that's why the mental health first aid training is really, really good for
yes.
people who, especially I think for people who haven't been through mental health challenges, because I think it's one of those things which, almost once I'd been through my own experience, it just opened
Mm,
my eyes to the whole topic, and almost I was forced to basically educate myself about it. But
yeah.
not everyone, you shouldn't have to be that people get to a crisis. And yeah,
Exactly that. That's why I always find it interesting as well when people kind of they're like, I'm finished with therapy, like I'm cured. And I'm like, therapy doesn't have to be from when you're at your absolute worst moment. In fact, it should come way before that.
yeah,
I mean,
mm,
anyone, regardless if you've ever had a mental health concern or not, everyone can benefit from therapy, in my
mm,
opinion. And it's something I always say is like often, because I've got a family history of kind of mental health issues and whatnot. And thankfully it's well managed. But you know, I've been to therapy in the past. My sister has been to therapy. And I think something I've learned is when I hear friends sometimes say, I went to a therapist and I hated it, didn't like it, never going again. I'm like, that is one person that you've been to see. Like, you are not necessarily going to click with that person. Just as like you get a driving instructors. Like
yeah,
I've had three driving instructors in the past, just because I moved to different areas, etc. And one of them was just incredible, and we got on so well. And that's the person that helped me
mm,
pass. Whereas I knew a different one, his communication style just didn't work with me at all, and I would never have passed with him regardless of how
yeah,
many lessons I had. And that's why I always try to remind people, it's you've got to find someone that's the right fit for you.
yeah, yeah. And there's, with anything as well, isn't there? Like, you could have people with relationships. You get those people who say, one bad relationship, they're like, that's it. I'm
Yes.
not dating. That's
Yeah,
it. I'm
yeah,
whatever.
that's
But
it, finished. Yeah,
yeah, or
yeah,
one manager in a certain industry, so like, that's it. I'm leaving
yeah,
that. And different managers. Yeah, it's about a different fit, but also the way you go into it. I'm sure. Like, if you go into it thinking, I don't like this, I don't want this, and you're
yes,
shut off, then you're not going to
yes,
get the best experience of it in the same way as with anything. You've got to allow yourself, even if you're a bit skeptical, or even if you're scared, or even if you're like it. Yeah, definitely for me, therapy was one of the biggest things. And there's, yes, I've had the sessions that I'm not actively going at the moment, but what's great as well is there's little things or lessons that I'm continually still using them. So
mm,
I remember specific conversations I had with a therapist, and I'm like, ah, a situation happens, say at work now or in life, and I'm go, oh, just remember what they said, and you have your little
yes,
coping. And so it's, yeah, really would recommend anyone give it a go.
totally, exactly. And like, I also think therapy is incredibly expensive. And so it's really hard because, like, I would go to therapy all the time if I could. I just can't really afford it. And I think that's sometimes it's so easy to say to people, oh, you need to go to therapy. But of course, therapy costs like so much. In London, it can be like easily £70 per session. If you're doing
Yeah.
that per week, like that's a lot of money to be spending. And it's such a shame that it's not more easily accessible to people, because you fall into that thing where life becomes you essentially, the poorer you are, you're more likely to live in poor mental health as well, because you don't have access to those
Hmm.
services, which is
Yeah.
obviously that means poor people are disproportionately affected by mental health issues as well, which is it's
Mm.
really such a problem that's really like
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, particularly as financial anxieties are often one of the biggest causes of stress. People sometimes say about, self-care, or, that
Yeah,
if people could have peace of mind, what would you need? Oh, financial security. Like,
exactly.
which is why it's sometimes, then again, it's just then, but the people who, and this isn't to say that that's everything, of course.
Mm,
Of course,
of
I've
course.
worked in football. I know that's
Yeah,
often something that young footballers get. They're on a lot of money, so, oh, you can't complain because you're on X hundred thousand a week, and it's
yes,
like, but then the pressure and this and that, and being in those very competitive, very male dominated environments where you can't show weakness, and the whole, not just to your teammates or friends, but to the whole public, like
Yeah,
it's tough.
yeah. I think
But
it's very much. Oh, sorry, I didn't. Yeah, I
no,
Go on. No, you go. You go.
no, yeah, I was just saying, yeah, but then just going to touch on that. It is tough for people who maybe would really want to have this, and the barrier isn't themselves or
Mm,
not being open to it. It's just financial, which is always is tough.
mm. I think as well, even when people are struggling, like for example, if someone was going to say, oh, my a therapist can't solve my financial troubles, if you do have the money to at least be able to afford therapy, it's not like they're going to take your financial problems away, but they'll be able to help you deal and process them, and just let you see things in a way that might be more beneficial to help you cope with the financial stress. So although therapists aren't there to fix all your problems, they can certainly help you manage and
Mm,
deal with them, and that's one of the biggest
yeah, that,
kind
yeah,
of enlightening moments that you can get.
that's the biggest thing, and that's what I sometimes say to, again, where people have said, "Oh, well, it's not going to change what I'm going through." I'm like, well, maybe not. They're not going to take the stress factors away, but they're giving you that tool to deal with it. In the same way
Mm.
that, this is going to be a rubbish analogy now. This is just off the top of my head, and it might not work. Like,
No,
a
no, no, no,
therapist,
go for it. I love an
like
analogy.
like like a therapist isn't going to stop it raining, but they'll give you the umbrella and the raincoat to kind of mean that it doesn't impact you so much and gives you that extra layer of protection. So you can't go into it thinking, well, but nothing's going to change. And it's like, well, yeah, you're right. If the mindset is the same, then maybe it won't change. But
Mm.
if you can change your mindset towards
Yeah,
it, then the change starts to happen. And even if the actual factors don't change, the way you're viewing them changes. And then,
totally. And I think also with therapy, I mean, obviously it depends on the type. The therapy I'm kind of primarily referring to is like cognitive behavioral therapy, like CBT, and like talking therapies. But I think it's also not about, oh, you go there, you learn so much. You're also unlearning so many things that you might have
mm,
been taught growing up about, not just about what it means to be masculine, but for me it was learning about how to view your body, because I struggled a lot with, I never had an eating disorder, but I very much struggle with disordered thoughts about
mm,
eating and about body image, and I continue to struggle with body image. And it was very much unlearning like all of these things about what we grew up with, and what we continue to see in the media, which is magazines in the shops with the red circles around women's bodies highlighting stretch marks, or how someone's
mm,
gained weight, or the whole bouncing back from babies, etc. And it's the culture is so hard to unlearn because it's so deeply instilled in everything we did growing up. So yeah, it's a big plus, and those tools don't necessarily apply to one situation. It helps you apply them to loads of other mental health aspects as well.
mm. Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
It's, yeah. Oh, I find it so fascinating. I do.
Me
I could
too, me too.
chat and chat about it, chat and chat.
Yeah.
But I think, and that's where, yeah, or doing this, having these conversations, I do remind myself, because sometimes I'm hard on myself, and I'm like, oh, for example, it's been a long time since series 3, or I
Mm.
haven't been putting out as much content as I used to. I used to be really hard on myself of like, I need to put out this amount each day and try and get the
Yes.
followers up. And initially, that was maybe when I wasn't working, so it was my, that was my purpose. Like, I woke up,
Yes.
oh, I'm building this platform, I'm building this page.
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of stuff, life's happening again, and which is great, and I really can't complain that I'm a lot's going on and there's a lot of exciting things happening. But I do sometimes have to step back and go, wow, like, I've those conversations I've had, or the money that would have been raised for the charity through the coffee, or sponsoring football teams, and just try and give myself that kudos for what's actually been done. And I mean, kind of for yourself as well, when you, or even when you're
Yeah.
saying, oh, I've spoken to maybe 150 people,
Mm.
had those conversations, and that was only, so do you say it's still about a year since you started
About
it,
a
or
year, yeah. So I'd say roughly maybe about 100 people that I've spoken with. But yeah,
nice?
I very much, and the mindset thing I totally get, because sometimes I would get into a bad headspace where I think, oh, no one stopped today, I haven't helped anyone today.
Mhm.
And I remembered that, like, I have the sign there. People look at the sign when they go past. Even if one person sees it, it might just be that reminder for them. They might not be ready to come over and talk, but it might just be that they see that, and later on it prompts them to act in a way that prioritizes their mental health. And that's the most
Yeah,
important thing.
yeah. And the best thing about raising awareness is that you never know the impact of it. It's quite a cliche, I know, but say someone who has a conversation with you will then maybe speak to their parents or speak to someone and say, oh, you never know what happened. You'll never guess what happened today. I spoke to someone,
Totally.
and then they speak to someone, or it might make them think, oh, I should really reach out to that person I haven't spoken to for a while. And so it's almost quite nice not knowing the
Yeah. The
impacts that
end
it could have.
result.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
is no end
Yeah.
result. Yeah,
It's yeah, totally.
no, amazing. So I think it's been a great chat. Like I said, I could go on and chat and
Oh,
chat.
honestly, me too. Me too.
And at some point, I'll have to get myself down to London, and we'll find a park bench somewhere. We'll have
And we'll have a
have a chat,
coffee on the
have a
park
coffee,
bench.
have a coffee, and a chat on the park bench. And it'll be perfect. The perfect blend, to use the
Yes.
coffee term.
And let's
Perfect
pray for
blend.
some sun as well. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. That would be
Mm,
amazing, and I look forward to that. But before we
totally.
finish, there's a question I ask everyone. So
Mm.
I'm going to make sure I keep that tradition in episode 1 of this
Yes.
series, and that is, what does happiness mean to you?
I Such a good question. Happiness to me is living in the present, being able to appreciate the now, and like kind of a state of contentment. So it's not about being the happiest you've ever been all the time, but being in a state of I'm happy, like I'm content where I am. And I don't need to move at 100 miles an hour. I'm not constantly looking to the future and worrying about what I've done in the past. I'm just really enjoying what I've got here and now without it being about money and material things. So that's what it means to me.
Amazing. Perfect.
Yeah.
Great way to
Thank
finish.
you.
And thanks so much, Lara, again, for your time, for this conversation, and for everything you're doing with that park bench girl. Is that it?
That's correct. Yeah,
That's
bang
where
on.
people will
Yeah,
find you. Yeah.
absolutely. And thank you so, so much for having me. What you're doing is incredible. And I'm very excited to meet for a coffee at some point.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this latest episode of Flat Whites and Insights, and I really hope you gained something from that conversation, because I know I certainly did. It would mean a lot if you can head over to Instagram and give Cappuccino a follow. This is where you can keep up with the content that I'm putting out, and where I'm hoping to raise awareness of mental health through my passions for football, coffee, and people. In addition to this, if you want to reach out and connect, or come on the podcast yourself and have a conversation, please do get in touch, because I'm always keen to speak to new people and hear about new experiences. Thank you so much, take care, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.